Welcome, everyone, to the Newark Collabcast, a show where we are simply better together. This podcast is the production of the Newark campus, which houses both Central Ohio Technical College, or COTC, as you might know it, and the Ohio State University at Newark. Those institutions have always been better together, and they always will be. And that idea is the very topic of the conversation you are going to hear today. If you're a first-time listener, that makes total sense because this is our very first episode of the Newark Collabcast. Our staff here on campus has big plans for the podcast, and we plan to deliver an episode to you once a month going forward. My name is Blake Baker. I'm honored to be the host of this inaugural episode, and I'm also the marketing writer on the Newark campus. I'm one of about 80 employees here who are what we call cost shared, meaning I work for both COTC and Ohio State Newark. Now, the cost shared model is a truly special partnership. It's really one of a kind in higher education, and it's celebrating an anniversary. For 55 years now, since 1971, these schools have shared staff, resources, and facilities to efficiently enhance the experiences of every single student on campus. It's something we're very proud of. But don't just take my word for it. Today, I'm speaking with the two men who oversee this campus and consequentially, the cost shared relationship at large. So let's dig into it. Over here, John M. Berry, COTC President. Dr. Berry, thank you much for joining the podcast today.
Can't wait to be a part of this inaugural experience, my friend.
Yeah, there we go. And we're also joined by Matthew J. Smith, Ohio State Newark Dean and Director. Dr. Smith, we appreciate your participation as well.
Blake, thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely. So I gave a little synopsis up top, a little bit of a crash course on this cost shared relationship, but they don't want to hear from me. They want to hear from you guys. So Dr. Smith, we'll start with you. I'm curious how you would define cost shared as it pertains to the Newark campus.
You know, there are a lot of ways in which a campus of our size could duplicate services. They could have two police forces. They could have two sets of communications professionals. They could have a lot of twos of everything trying to do individually what we accomplish in tandem together. And I think the beauty of what we attempt to do here is to find places where services we can eliminate the duplication of services, and we can be more essential with how we produce effective experiences for our students. I think a really good example of this is in our student life area. It's not as if we're going to throw an event, make it exclusive to Ohio State students, and if any COTC students wander up, turn them away. We're not going to do that, right? They're all students at the Newark campus. And so student life performs functions that allow us to have events that welcome both sets of students in. They both can feel welcomed and they can both be served by that service.
Dr. Berry, any thoughts from you as well?
Matt's spot on. The only thing that I would add is if you actually look at the state codification, we have to co-locate. We have to at least share a physical presence on a campus environment. And that's true of any of the Research One institutions that have a regional campus network. They have to co-reside with a technical college. Most of them stop there. When I say most of them, every other one but us basically stopped there. As Matt indicated, and you did as well, having almost 80 staff members work consecutively for both institutions, great cost savings for the entirety of the state, for all of our state citizenry. But what it also affords us is an opportunity for people to really enjoy working for the two institutions, and their jobs are more robust, more interesting. I would say there's a passion for both institutions that are shared. Hey, it doesn't hurt to save $2 million annually in that process.
No doubt about that. And Dr. Berry, you're somebody who's been here on campus for a number of years in multiple different roles. Can you walk us through a little bit of the history of this cost-shared relationship and how we got to this point?
Yeah, that's very kind of you. Blake did not say you're old. I appreciate that very much. One can infer. But I actually served in a cost-shared role from 2000 to 2014. And as Dr. Smith alluded to, that environment in the Student Affairs Division, I oversaw both the Student Affairs component and then started to work more specifically for the Community and Technical College side, doing enrollment work. But that cost-shared relationship, really having a deep understanding and commitment to that process. You know, it was fun. I told Matt, I actually had a blue vest and a red vest in my office.
Yeah.
If they had any particular need for specificity to that, say it was an orientation event for one or the other, and those were a little bit more separated. But I typically wore more of a purple vest because almost everything that we did was open to and expected by all of our students on the campus environment, no matter if they were OSU or COTC.
Has this partnership kind of Was that the goal from the outset, as far as you know, or was it kind of a later development?
No, it's a very good question. I would say our founding fathers were committed to this ideal from day one. OSU has a little bit longer history than we do. They actually started in the localized community in some of the high schools way back in the day, in the 60s. When they started on this campus, we shortly joined them 55 years ago. We are now 55 years old as an institution. And the founding fathers of the network of this system wanted this to happen in this manner. They wanted us to be collaborative. They wanted us to jointly form and move ahead. Again, we alluded to this a little bit earlier. If you go on to any of the other campus environments, they don't necessarily cost share, but even on co-location, they can't keep a lot of separation.
Yeah.
This building belongs to, say, Ohio State at Lima. This building belongs to Rhodes State. And those two shall never mix. Every one of our buildings are commingled. We don't say that this room belongs to one or the other. It is a very different type of process. Now, it's a lot more work to do it that way, but it's work that is certainly beneficial.
Absolutely. Dr. Smith, you're somebody who's been here, I believe, about a year and a half now, going on your second academic year here. What have you seen? What's your first impression been, I guess, of this partnership, and how is it delivered on what it promises?
Blake, when I arrived, one of the key considerations that people on campus and beyond campus wanted me to understand is just how important the cost-shared relationship is. And I like to say that they were very eager to find out if I were willing to drink the Kool-Aid with them. And I say now that not only have I drank the Kool-Aid, I'm actually selling it myself.
There you go.
I like to be out there letting people know just about the value of this relationship. I think it is, as your opening suggested, we're stronger together because of it, because we have so much expertise that we're able to pull on, because we're able to serve students wherever they are and whatever their needs are, and because we're able to relate to the wider community. I mean, this campus was built on the strength of support that comes from the local community. And I think they've set a very clear expectation for all of us. They want this relationship to persist. And it is our duty as those who are shepherding the process forward to make sure that the strength of that collaboration continues.
Yeah. Certainly. And that's a good segue, because I really do think that it takes a village to pull something like this off. It's obviously thriving in 55 years, but it's not just the campus alone, it's the surrounding community as well. This campus has been helped by, the Newark Campus Development Fund comes to mind, 40 plus years of, funding innovative projects and scholarships on campus that are, not just what students need, but more than what students need really to be successful, kind of the linchpin that engages the community. Dr. Berry, when it comes to the community and donors like the Newark Campus Development Fund, how do they express how they want their donations to really be utilized to benefit both institutions?
Yeah, that's another great question. This process is the right thing to do, but it's also a competitive advantage by doing it.
Yeah.
And when I say that, and Matt alluded to this, the amount of community support that we garner collectively when our advancement office is deciding, I've got to go out on a campaign and try to raise money for this campus. That individual is doing this for both institutions at the same time, going out and knocking on doors and saying, if you support this will be an enhancement for all students, regardless of which institution affiliation they have. And people respond to that readily. If you look at the environment that we've been able to create here in the Newark campus, it's exceptional. It is funny because when I was here for my first 14-year stint and left for that 5 years and came back, my wife told me, you're never going to experience something like this again. Wow. And it was profound and prophetic because it was absolutely true. The ability for the community to give of their time, talents, energy, and resources. They are able to do that to us jointly, and they appreciate that, and they're very, very generous in that process.
Yeah, NCDF just reached a new milestone in terms of its contributions to the campus. It's now $60 million that they have contributed to this campus. That's a remarkable sum over a period of 4 decades for a community of our size. And it's a testimony to the devotion that the local community has and what it holds for this particular campus.
And I don't think that would happen for either institution individually.
Yeah.
There was no way we could expect that level of support. But by doing the collaborative venture that you all have already talked about, it enables us to attract that level of support. And we don't take that lightly. And we are very, very appreciative.
Truly better together. There you go, proof of concept. So symbiotic relationship here on campus with the campus and the community. but there's also a lot of support from this campus to different institutions in the community. Dr. Smith, I know you're kind of intimately involved in some of those relationships right now, the inner workings of which we don't necessarily have to get into the nitty-gritty right now, but how have you seen this cost-shared relationship reflected in the institutions like junior achievement and the works and things of that nature?
Yeah, we have a lot of great organizations in Licking County that are just as dedicated as we are to educational missions. The Works is a great example of that. We've been a longtime partner with them in terms of promoting the kinds of education that they do, reaching out to, admittedly, mostly younger audiences, but audiences that definitely will eventually become the audiences that we seek to serve as well. And so we have a particular partnership on the OSU side with the planetarium, which we co-sponsor with the Works. But with COTC, we sponsor many of their programs going through the year. And it's because we believe that the mission that they're fulfilling in terms of raising the profile of STEM education in the community serves us ultimately, because we are then able to take students who have caught the spark that a place like the Works creates in those students and then fan it into a flame that leads to them completing degrees, whether they be associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees or beyond.
I know things like the Newark Earthworks has kind of been into the fold there. There's some forthcoming programs that I think will be very exciting to talk about as we go throughout this year. So stay tuned on that as well. A lot of what we're talking about, I think, is pretty large scale so far. But you both alluded to, I think, kind of the day-to-day functions of the campus. And those are really the functions through which we can see the impact of this partnership. So Dr. Berry, how do some of these specific cost-shared functions like student life, marketing, financial aid, just to name a few, how do those meet the unique needs of these two institutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And some people ask, don't you dilute your service because you provide this to both? And I would say it's exact opposite, that we're able to build portfolios of resource management that neither could have individually. If we had a financial aid office at COTC, there may be a couple of people in that. And I would say truly that would be the same for OSU Newark. We have a very robust, fully staffed group of individuals who are dedicated to the process of serving our students here, and they do it well. And we don't have to worry about, do we have enough to manage? Are they ready to serve our students in the manner they need to? So I would say to you, that's just one example. We talk about with our business and finance area, that individual and those people who serve have to understand the uniqueness of this relationship. Constant give and take with it, because as our enrollment shift, there might be a time where we have more enrollment, and that will help our friends and partners at OSU Newark, vice versa. And right now, it is vice versa. We appreciate their growth very, very much. But that does benefit our students and their abilities to have an array of services and portfolios that they would not be able to have if we were one individual institution.
Yeah, I just tell you that I think the secret sauce to this relationship is the fact that we share a chief financial officer, because there is no advantage to that individual giving preferential treatment to one organization over the other. The fact that the books are completely open and completely known to that officer then allows us to be informed about what each side of the house is doing. If for some reason that was split, I think it'd be a little dicier than it is, but because we're completely transparent with one another about where our enrollments are, where our costs are, where our investments are going, it's a lot easier for us to coordinate and plan moving forward.
And in terms of these day-to-day functions and how they are propped up on campus, the chief of staff, that kind of Jackie Perrell that works with both and really fine-tunes these strategic plans to make sure that they are maintained and strengthening this relationship as well. I think that's also very important, and one that might go kind of underappreciated a little bit as well, and maybe not as visible from the ground level. So obviously, from what you guys have said, from maybe even just a layperson perusing the buildings and walking around campus, it's obvious that there's so much support for every student on this campus. But at the end of the day, they either choose COTC or Ohio State Newark, not 100% of the time, but often choose one or the other. And I imagine there's a little bit of that to balance. So Dr. Smith, to what extent are these two schools trying to attract and enroll the same students? And how do you kind of keep these schools from competing with one another?
Great question, Blake. I think there is very little competition between us because we're serving such different interests and needs among the students who are coming for higher education. So if you look at the portfolio of courses that Dr. Berry offers, they're very focused on workforce development. Students who come into those situations, they're looking for a 2-year degree program that can get them out there and working in the police force, in a nursing situation, in a radiology program, wherever it is, right? Our students are a little more traditional, looking at the baccalaureate pathway. They're thinking about a 4-year degree or more than that to start them on that path. And there are occasionally people who complete a 2-year degree at COTC and then recognize the value of moving ahead and getting that baccalaureate's degree here at Ohio State Newark. But that's not the majority. It's not even a significant number, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
We're delighted when that does happen and when we can be of service to someone whose goals match that. But really, the difference in programs, and then there are really no programs that compete with one another. Even our engineering programs, which are kind of complementary with one another. They have very different focuses. They lead to very different career outcomes. They serve different populations and the interests of those populations so that we're not competitors, we're complementary to one another.
Yeah. And Dr. Berry, I'm curious about your thoughts as well. Same question to you.
I appreciate that. And I would echo what you heard from Dr. Smith. But I would also add that although our cycles of enrollment are not conjoined, we do have a separation in that simply because of the processing and our academic streaming. Our staff know to think about what institution can better serve that student. So we might be intaking an individual who could best be served by OSU Newark in a baccalaureate pathway. Our staff will literally walk them down the hall and over to the next building to say, this individual probably needs to sit down with you and learn more about what you do, and vice versa. And that happens regularly and consistently. So not only are we not competitive, I would say even though we're not cost-shared in those areas, it's still a collaborative process because we both know what our strengths are as institutions. And it's interesting because I know we've used the moniker in this sort of design that we are 2 exceptional institutions of higher education, 1 shared environment, infinite possibilities.
Yeah.
And I do believe that to be true. That is absolutely the case.
And Dr. Smith alluded a little bit to the different populations that this serves. I think it's, the traditional route that Ohio State Newark kind of serves. I think that kind of goes without saying, but I'm curious how you would kind of describe, Dr. Berry, the COTC student body demographic and how that might differ from Ohio State Newark.
Yes. Well, a lot of the differences, I would start with this sort of descriptor. Most of the OSU Newark students, if you ask them to describe themselves and their lives, they would start by saying, I'm an Ohio State student. And then I do a myriad of other things. Our students are converse. They will start with, I'm a mother, I'm a father, I work full time, fill in that blank. And I'm a student at COTC. It's a level of importance, but in their life order of necessity, they will start with some of those other factors. So they are traditionally part-time students. They're older students, most of them in that spectrum. Most of our students happen to be women. If you actually look, we're almost 80% on that spectrum.
Wow.
So, and many of those are individuals, single parents, coming back into the workforce, trying to advance their life systems and the lives of their families as well. And our job is to help them achieve that.
Absolutely. And that's going pretty well so far.
So far, so good. But it's still 55 years and going. So
no doubt. So we've established that maybe the students are different. Some of the staff, at least some of the staff, is the same. Dr. Smith, are there common classes and faculty between the 2 institutions here?
That is the one place where we do diverge from one another. Both institutions have their unique academic missions and thus their distinct faculty. And so while there is the potential for collaboration and interaction among the faculty, the courses we offer are separate, the programs we have are distinct, and ultimately our faculty are distinct. And so that's one place where we don't necessarily overlap or share, but that's by design. So, the faculty member who is teaching in our police preparation program, there's no such thing at Ohio State, right? So there's really not a space for them to do that. But I think, again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with this diversity of options for students. So that if someone comes in and says, I'm interested in pursuing X, if we can't accommodate them on the COTC side, we may be able to accommodate them on the Ohio State side.
Absolutely. And it's good to hear that even if it's not maybe in the employee job description, that they still buy into this cost-shared model. I think something like the Greenstein Award is a great incentive for that too, and really honors the people who take that to the next step, even if it doesn't show up in what they're really required to do. That's great.
And Blake, stay on that for just a second. It's interesting because people don't realize it's only now, I've been here for 7, my predecessor for 14, and then her predecessor for 4. So I say it that way because until then, there was one chief executive officer for
Yes.
both institutions.
Yeah.
So you imagine that you had a dean director for the Ohio State side who was also the president of COTC. And we both grew to a certain extent that wasn't very pragmatic anymore. So it wasn't that there was a schism, it was just a growth component. But now Matt and I have made the concerted effort to say, we need to bring those physical connections of the chief executive officers back under one roof. There was a time there was a separation between the two office areas, not much, but they weren't conjoined. And when we had the renovation here of the original Founders Hall, which is now Hodges Hall, we decided we wanted to bring that under one roof again. So we share an executive suite. We often walk down the hall to see one another. I'd say almost every day for something, just to touch base. What do you think about this? Hey, I heard that. Hey, here's an opportunity. What do you want to do with it? So on and so forth. And it really signifies that it's a visual representation of the commitment to the relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's many different ways that it manifests itself. And I think if there's nothing else that a listener can take away from this podcast so far, we're well into it, is that this partnership works, right? This partnership is going well. But yet it hasn't been replicated many other places. And I'm curious, Dr. Berry, we'll start with you, why you think that's the case. What about this campus and the culture that it possesses really allows this type of collaboration, long-term collaboration, to flourish?
Yeah, that's a fine question. And why are others reticent to actually engage in it? One, you have to actually give up a locus of control. You do. That's just a piece of it because you don't own everything. You have to collaborate on a great deal of processing. The benefits greatly outweigh that process. Now, and I would tell you that because we've grown up in it and not known anything different, it is a lot easier to manage than some of our sister schools who have never conjoined in this process. And they have developed systems that are uniquely their own, and they are independent of one another. And so to say, let's thrust a community of partnership together, sometimes the first reaction is, wait a minute, I don't want to give up that autonomy. I want to have my unilateral decision-making process. So, we have cost-shared staff that report directly to the two of us, and we have to even come to a consensus about how do we think that they are doing? Are we both comfortable in that process? What kind of coaching or feedback do we need to give to the individual that is collective? That's different than if I just manage that person independently. So, but it's better. It is better short-term and long-term, but you have to have that commitment and you have to consistently connect and communicate.
Yeah, it's kind of just inherent at this point.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Dr. Smith, anything to add?
100% on everything that Dr. Berry just said. I would say two observations I've had. One, this is by design, right? From the beginning, the intention was to have the cost shared lead to greater success for both institutions.
For sure.
So, it was baked in, which is something that works against other institutions who might be thinking about this. If you haven't started there, it's hard to get to where we are. Second thing is, I think people like us have bought into it, right? It's one thing to start on this path, but to keep going down the path, you've got to train the next successive generation of leaders to want to advocate for it. So it's absolutely imperative that whoever replaces John someday and whoever replaces me someday also gets the message about just how important this relationship is. Because without that, top-down leadership, you're not going to have this continue to be as successful as it has been.
And on the same lines of that, the future generations, you're shaping futures here. What does the future of this partnership look like in your mind?
We've got a lot of things we're working on right now. So, we have a wonderful facility called Lefevre Hall, which houses both of our engineering programs. And because they are both fairly successful at the moment, we're outgrowing that space. So we're having a conversation about, well, what does it look like to either renovate that space or reconsider the space or expand the space? How do we move that forward to meet both needs on both sides of the house? We're thinking about some enhancements to campus that might beautify it. We're also thinking about ways in which our partnership continues to develop in terms of personnel. So we're not just sort of getting to the 55th anniversary and saying, let's applaud this and job well done, everyone, go home.
Yeah.
We're thinking about how do we capitalize on the momentum we have and continue to pursue that. John, what would you add to that?
And again, I'm going to echo exactly what you heard from Dr. Smith. I would just add as well that when we have opportunities to vacate space, so we are moving our police academy and our criminal justice programs to a slight off-campus environment because we have this opportunity to create Evans Hall.
Yeah.
That opens up space internally. If we don't cost share and co-locate like we do, I could say, well, that's my space, and I'm going to put something else in there. But what we do is say, oh, the space is vacated. What's our universal need? What do we need to look at? What could retrofit in there better? Could it be an OSU space? Could it be a COTC? Is it a cost share space? What do we need? And that is, again, inherent into our design, but it is not how most of our sister schools would necessarily think in that way.
That's what makes us different, and all the better. So again, very flourishing relationship, long-term collaboration. I think the two of you and many other people on campus deserve huge kudos for how this has gone. And we want to give this partnership the proper flowers while it's around. So we alluded to a celebration going on this year, 2026. What can we expect out of the celebration of this milestone year? What kind of plans are in place?
Well, I know that Matt and I will be doing a traveling roadshow throughout the year, going to a myriad of service organizations, individuals, organizations who need and should understand what this is. It's so interesting because a lot of people know a bit about this. They know, oh, well, you guys collaborate, and that's great. But they don't know to the extent or how that works or what does that do for our region, our state. This is a way for us to really share the story of it and talk about what the future of it will engage as well. So we're very excited about that. We'll have some internal celebrations on campus. We will certainly share the gospel as we go out into the larger community environments as well. Ma'am, thoughts?
And I think you'll see some announcements out there in the social media sphere. We've got some lovely endorsements coming from local and statewide celebrities who have some very kind things to say about the progress of this partnership. So we hope to help everyone to realize just how strong this partnership is, but also just how deep it is.
Absolutely. There's lots of ways that staff, faculty, all kinds of stakeholders can really engage with this upcoming celebration, and we're very excited to be able to deliver that to the campus here and then the community at large. So yeah, this celebration I think is important to continue telling the story of this collaboration and the culture that exists here on campus. These are two partner institutions that are really meeting students where they are, different missions, and yet they're related. I'm going to take a page out of Dr. Berry's book, who loves to use kind of quotes to replicate his point or hammer home his point. Mother Teresa had a really nice quote that I do things you cannot, you do things I cannot. Together, we can do great things. So where one school maybe lacks, I guess, using that word for lack of a better word, this other one can kind of pick it up. And that's what props up this relationship. This campus in partnership really beautifully embodies that idea. So thank you very much for enlightening us on this topic. And we look forward to celebrating it all throughout 2026.
Thank you, Blake. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
All right, listeners, well, that about wraps up this episode, the very first one of the Newark Collabcast. We really hope you enjoyed the conversation. And if you want even more info on the 55th anniversary celebration or just want to reinforce what you heard here today, visit go.cotc.edu/55partnership or go.osu.edu/55partnership. And just like this cost-shared relationship, we who work on the Newark Collabcast have a monumental year planned for you all. Our goal is to bring you an episode each month, and each one will be focused on a different topic that affects the campus here, be it student success, student life, enrollment marketing, alumni relations, strategic planning. I think we even have some conversations with community partners planned. We think you're really going to enjoy what's in store. But for now, we really hope you enjoyed this inaugural episode of the Newark Collabcast. On behalf of Dr. Berry and Dr. Smith, I'm Blake Baker saying thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.